Father, thank you for this moment. Thank you for your Shabbat. Thank you for your warnings and the remembering of Israel to come back and do your thing. Thank you for all the years that you had us in a delusion of an improper worship, and to remind us to come back and ask forgiveness for our forefathers and ask forgiveness for ourselves, and that we represent you in the highest manner, doing your moedim only the way you want us to do it. In Yahuwah's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah. So we were just talking here about Kurt's background being kind of a variegated transition between colors, and that if you get your hair dyed, or a watercolor painting is referred to as ombre, O-M-B-R-E. And Kurt was just saying, well, wait a minute, that sounds like the word H-O-M-B-R-E, which is hombre, silent H in Spanish. So if you go to a Mexican restaurant, you might see damas, meaning women, like dames, and hombre, meaning what, men or cowboys, or why would that be? And some time ago, you hear about the sombrero, that big giant hat that the Mexican guys would wear. Why? What's that word, sombrero? That's just the name of the hat. Well, if it ends in an O, it's first person possessive. Sombrero, well, the ER is a verb action, so sombre would be a verb, and it turns out that the word sombre means to shade or to shadow. So sombrero this is my shadow causing, shade giving device, wearing it on my head. And we have the word umber, raw umber, or burnt umber, are shades of a brown tone. Not particular, but kind of indistinct. And then you've got umbre. Well, that's like the word umbrella. Parasol. Para means against. Sol, S-O-L, is the word sun. So your umbrella is what gives you shade, blocking against the sun. So, see, all these words are related. Well, that brings up this first verse of Psalms 91 that says, Yod Shin Bet. Well, Shin Bet is the root word of Shabbat. Shin Bet Tav is Shabbat. So this is Yod, prefix, meaning he will. Shin Bet is the word sit, dwell, return, repent. Shin Bet is an old man. Well, what's an old man? The guy who sits in a rocking chair and can't get up? It's basically, as you might say idiomatically, whether or not it is, another lap around the sun. I remember birthday cards years ago. Hey, another birthday, another trip around the sun. One who keeps coming back around annually is the root word Shin Bet. So Shabbat literally can be read as Tav suffix at the end, puts it into the past tense or the future tense. The one who comes back to sit. Comes back where? Well, Shin Bet also means to sit or dwell. Okay, to return to dwell. Well, that's the word Shabbat. Or Yod Shin Bet, Yeshuv. But if it also means rebel, which is to turn away, or recant, or repent, so it's the penitent one, the one who rebels and then comes back. Hey, that's the prodigal son story, the story of Israel, Ephraim, in Jeremiah 31, which is also, remember, in the prodigal son story, the son who had taken his inheritance and ran with it, spent it all, lavish living, and then he was reduced to feeding pigs. And even today, you'll go to grocery stores and they take the produce, which can't be sold because it's ripe that day or past ripe, and they'll give it to farmers who have pigs, because pigs will eat anything, especially they like it when it's soured. And so here this young man was feeding the pigs all this wonderful food, and he was too poor to have any. And he says, hey, in the New Testament story, he says, hey, why don't I go back home to my father's house? Now, why would he all of a sudden think that? We've discussed this before, that the word for pig is chazir, chet, zayin, yod, resh. But that exact same word in Hebrew, chazir, means one who returns. So the pigs return, come back and eat their own feces, or so I've heard. So he was looking at the pig, and in his mind, we read it in English, and it says he was feeding the pigs or the swine, and thought, hey, why don't I just go home? But in Hebrew, because it's the exact same word, he was giving food to one who returns. And he thought, hey, why don't I go home and eat the food of one who returns at my father's table? So, we're talking about building a consciousness. So this is the third week. This is essentially part 5, and it'll be part 6 later, of the same concept, building a consciousness. In other words, if you look at Hebrew, if you set Hebrew in your mind and as the paradigm, as the structure by which things are built, you see the letter Samic in the Paleo-Hebrew. It's got this one vertical like a tree trunk, and then 3 horizontals like branches, or like the mast of a ship with the yard arms. Backbone, spinal column with ribs. Same picture. Index, column, row. To put things in column row is one of the meanings of the word ayin resh kaf. Erik, as in eriktology. So to organize things in such a way that they can be determined for value, things that you would otherwise not have paid attention to, but you organize them. I remember back in grade school, we had English grammar, and you learned how to, what's the word? I can't remember what the word is, but you break the sentence. You learn how to decompose a sentence and say, this is the subject, this is the predicate, this is the noun, this is the verb. And then you put paragraphs into order, capital 1, then lowercase, or then uppercase A, and then lowercase numbers, then lowercase letters, and you break down and you organize a paragraph for a reasonable, logical flow of thought, keeping things in subject arrangement. So the letter Samic, being this vertical with these horizontals, is a picture, a thematic logogram, diagramming sentences. Thank you. The Samic is a thematic logogram, a minimal graphic. The word elegant means unadorned. An elegant dress that a woman might wear is simple, not frills, not extra fringes and ribbons. And hey, Mark, hi, Paul. We're underway here already, just so you know. So it's the simplest form. Some people might refer to that as Occam's razor. What that means is, you might say scientific perspective, is that the least, the minimalist, the simplest is probably the truest. That's just the way the universe is built. So the Paleo-Hebrew pictograph orthography of the letters is actually the Occam's razor elegant perspective. And this idea of saying human mind is built to analyze things in this vertical connection of line by line orchestration. That concept is right there in the Paleo-Samic. And I say that because the modern Samic is written as this circle with a little tail sticking up. That's well, what's that got to do with? It's more like a Paleo-ion. I mean, what's that got to do with the backbone structure? The interesting thing about the letter Samic is that another way to draw the Samic in the Paleo was maybe at an angled line. It doesn't matter whether the line's vertical or angular, but you think of a tree or a backbone or a mast of a ship when it's vertical, and if it was sideways and then it just had a zigzag. Well, why a zigzag? Well, if you have a pen and it's like a quill pen and you sit there and, if you have three distinct lines, nowadays we have great writing instruments. In the past, they might have had more cumbersome devices to use. Or if you were trying to chip with a into stone, maybe with a iron needle tool and a hammer, and you blow out the rock, it might be easier to write like what looks like a zigzag and a line. And back in the olden days, you can see on coins and some stone carvings that nobody had the sense of drawing things in a certain order. In other words, words were spelled with letters scattered all over, and sentences did not necessarily follow a pattern. As a matter of fact, it's been determined, and you might say, how in the world do you do that? Well, just by figuring out what the letters are and what they were trying to say, is that there's something called the plowing pattern. So in English, we start in the upper right-hand corner, and we write left-hand corners. Hebrew's right-hand corner, but we spell the words all the way across, and then we jump down to the next line and go all the way across, and then jump to the next line. But remember, the ancient ones were farmers and plowers, and aleph is an ox, and you're not going to start a plow line and run it across and then drag the ox back to the other side and draw another line again, then drag it back to the other side. You're going to run this way, and you drop down the next line, then you go that way, and you drop down, and you go this way, and you drop down and go that way. So to read lines of text one direction, then the other direction, that's called the plowing pattern. Well, why would you do that? That's confusing. It's only confusing to us now because our minds have been conformed to doing it the right way, the English way, the different. That has, instead of it being different, whoever feels like writing something, we have these standardized conformities. So when you find an ancient text, did they have those same paradigms? The word paradigm is a picture of the letter Samic. Order, row, this is the way it's done. It didn't have any, this is the way it's done. People were still figuring that out and deciding that this is the way it's done. So then you get a later development of language where people decided this is the way we're going to pronounce the words, but we don't know the way they pronounced them way back when. It's all guesswork. The point is, when you look at the shape of the Paleo-Hebrew letters, there's something about just looking at the shape of the letters that I believe you can derive the true essence or meaning of the letter just from the way it's designed. And so this idea of the one shape of the letter Samic being a maybe an angled line with a zigzag, and it doesn't look like a spinal column, what does it look like? Well, to me, it looks like an axle rod and a spinning propeller, which is similar to the modern Samic being drawn like a spin. A spinning propeller, what's that got to do with a backbone? If you were to look at a line, a trajectory, and a propeller's wake, it would almost look like that zigzag pattern. Think of motoring. Well, did they have motors back then? They had all kinds of stuff that we don't know they had. You might say, well, how did they invent a propeller shape? There's no evidence of that. You can look at a maple seed coming down, it's got a propeller shape. It's not that hard to figure out. They might have had stuff we don't know they had. The point is, if you look at Micah 6:8, Yahuwah said, What's the upshot of it all? And I remember bumping into this verse a couple decades ago, being raised in a Christian family and church and school, and being mindful of the Bible and all these rules and counter rules and covenants, and you better do this. No, it doesn't matter if you do that. You better do this other thing. And what you just believe. No, don't just believe. You better do. It's like, what the? And I found Micah 6:8, and he says, he has told you or shown you, made perceptible to you, O man, human, what is good and what Elohim requires of you. Now, he could have said right there, just believe in the future, because this is Old Testament, just believe in the future death of the Messiah for your sake. But he didn't say that. He gave us three things. Do justly. That's the word asha mishvat. Ayin shin hey is to make, to do, to cause, produce, to affect, to force, compel, to get an effect. Mishvat, right ruling, justice, equitable. Do what you're saying going to do. Pay what you say you're going to pay. Mishvat. And to love mercy. Do justly, love mercy. That, I believe that's the word to ahav chesed, kindness and mercy. Or you could say, might have even been rachem, which would be mercy and compassion. Yeah, they don't deserve it. Well, mishvat's all about what people deserve. Chesed is giving them kindness, which they don't deserve. There was this story I saw years ago in Reader's Digest once. It said in the days of Napoleon, he was going to execute one of his soldiers. And the mother came and said, please have mercy on my son. And Napoleon said, he doesn't deserve mercy. And she said, if he deserved it, it wouldn't be mercy. And Napoleon thought about it and he says, oh, you're right. Okay, so he was trying to execute justice by executing this soldier, this young man. But then when he realized mercy is a choice to extend somebody something they don't deserve, but because of the benevolence of your own heart, he extended the life of the soldier and didn't execute him. Because of his understanding. So to love mercy is not just begrudgingly yield to somebody else's benefit, though they didn't deserve it. It's to anticipate and joyfully look for occasions to do things for people that they don't deserve, and especially an enemy, somebody that deserved a different attitude. Love mercy. And the third thing was walk humbly with your Elohim. Walk humbly, humble. That's almost like putting your head down and feeling pressed or shamed. Well, the word ayin nun hey is the word for humble, but it's also the word to fast, used in Isaiah 58. And then if you look up, it means more than that. It means to answer, reply, sing. If you're in a choir and you've got a lead vocalist, and then the choir sings something in response, that's the word, to sing in response as another voice of answer. It also means to be occupied, burdened. Take it as your concern, to the point that perhaps you're not even eating. It can mean to fast. It can mean to humble, afflicted, oppressed. But it's more that you're burdened by another concern, and so you're withholding your pleasure or your other needs for the sake of attending to this. That's ayin nun hey. Walk halakha, hey lamed kaf. Well, there's a certain parashah, lek lakah, lamed kaf, and it's translated, go, get out. Lamed is to, unto, or the shepherd's staff of authority, and kaf means, as a suffix, means you. So, to you. Halakha, the way you were told to walk, you were instructed. Hey is revealing, lamed, teaching and instruction, kaf, open hand, kaf suffix means you. So literally the word translated walk, spelled hey lamed kaf, means the way you were instructed. Halakha. I remember hearing once that halakha was a bad thing. Jews have made up their own halakha. Yeah, we're not addressing any of that kind of determinations of meanings of words. The word mem lamed kaf, melech, hey, that's king. There's a verse in Proverbs that says it's the glory. Perhaps that is the word kavod. It's the glory, the honor, the esteem of Elohim to hide a matter. And it's the glory of kings, melachim, to search it out. Kings, well, how many kings are there? There used to be a king over every city. Then there was kings over regions, and now there's just a few kings left in the world over certain countries. Queen of England at the present time, maybe the King of Spain or something, but there's not very many more. So they should be, well, they're pretty busy. Is it the glory of kings? Who are the kings? We're supposed to be a kingdom of priests, kings and priests. That's what we're supposed to be. Maybe that's the kings. Well, the word mem is a prefix letter that means to turn something theoretical into a noun, non-substantive noun, like the word to know something. That's a verb action, but knowledge, yeah, well, that's a noun, but it doesn't have any substance. So knowledge, if you put mem in front of dalet ayin, which means to know, that becomes knowledge. Well, if you put a mem in front of lamed kaf, what does that mean? That means one who's actually doing what we were instructed to do. Well, wouldn't that be halakha? Well, it's also mem malakha, melech, king. So it's the glory of kings to seek out a matter, or the glory of one who actually wants to do what we were told to do, to seek out a matter. Well, why do we have to seek it out? Why didn't he put it perfectly clear? I mean, is he trying to hide things from people? I heard somebody say once, God doesn't hide things. Well, that's interesting. So they believe in a deity whose typical behavior is to not hide things from people or from his people. But I read all through the scripture that Yahuwah, the Elohim of Israel, certainly does hide things, not only from people in general, but even from his own people. And then he says, this is like this great treasure hunt. Now you have to go find it. I told you what to do. Now you need to go find it, seek for it. And if you do, it'll be a glory, a regard and esteem for you, which is to say, yeah, but what if you don't know about it? And what if you don't want to, what if you don't have time? It's like, well, then don't. Yeah, but does that count as a demerit? No, he didn't say that. He just said it'll be a merit, a promo for you if you choose to be one of his people who goes to seek out what he hid. What would he hide? The interesting thing, a treasury, you look up in the Hebrew dictionary for the word treasury, and it says, well, it's the place you hide a treasure. Well, what's a treasure? You look that word up, and it's something you want to hide. The logic of that. So we use the word treasure. Treasure is something so valuable, you want it hidden. And you hide it in the place that you put your valuables. It's like this small circle of logical connection. It's kind of like people saying, Jesus said, if you love me, keep my commandments. Okay, what's your commandment? To love me. If you love me, love me. What? Short circuit, is that really what it means? So going to Psalms 91, Yeshuv, or he who sits, he who dwells, he who returns, like the word for pig, the word for prodigal son. Besatar, bet means in, Samik Tav Resh. Well, it's translated as refuge or secret place. Secret place. So there is a secret place, and you can sit in the secret place. And then it says Elyon. Well, Ayin Lamed Yod, we're going to look at that word, Ayin Lamed Hey, and its derivatives. Ayin Lamed Yod is to raise up. We talked last week about the word pestle, and we're going to continue with what we didn't talk about last week. But when you put the Vav Nun or the Yod Vav Nun, it means one who is. Remember, Nun is the action of doing. Well, Elyon is translated most high. So El Elyon. Aleph Lamed, translated as God. Ayin Lamed, Yod Vav Nun, most high. So this is El Elyon is translated God most high. But here it's talking about Besatar Elyon. So this is a refuge or the highest secret. The greatest secret, the highest secret. Just as a way of looking at the construct of words in derivatives, if this is Ayin Lamed Yod Vav Nun, then Yod Vav Nun is a 3-letter suffix. If you look at Zadi Yod Vav Nun, that gives you the word Zion, as in Z-I-O-N, as in the mountain in Jerusalem, or the fabled realm of Yahuwah, or the New Jerusalem, Zion. National Park, Zion in Utah. But that's Zadi Yod Vav Nun. Well, if the Yod Vav Nun means the one who is engaged in being, and Ayin Lamed then is the action, which is to raise up, but Ayin Lamed also can just mean yoked or in connection with. Doesn't necessarily mean most high, but it's translated most high. What I'm saying is that this study of Hebrew to develop a consciousness, Yod Vav Nun means to be engaged in the action. Well, so does having a mem prefix mean one who's engaged in the action. They're kind of synonymous, prefix, suffix, just so you know. But Zadi Vav is the word command. Zadi Yod is one who dwells in the desert, a dry place. Like a ship is the dry place on the ocean. And many times, the analogy or the metaphor of a ship is used. We'll bump into that another place too, being like a covered deck of a ship. Covered meaning secret or hidden. A place of prestige. If you have an open rowboat, it's a boat on the water, but if you have a deck covering the hull, so you have a compartment safe and covered and secret, that's a better thing, depending on what you're using the boat for. But what I'm saying is that just like Elyon is that the one who is the maximized version of this, Zion would be one who is doing the maximized version of obeying my commands. So Zion is not just a place, it's those of us who are intending and then doing Yahuwah's commands. We're never taught that, though. I've never taught that. I had to try to figure that out. The word satar, bet samik tav resh, that was translated refuge or secret place. Bet being the prefix letter means in. Satar, samik, remember that's the indexing, the organized structure, like a black bone, like motoring, like how are you motoring? Samik ayin pei, samik ayin pei. That's why on the Mishkan pattern, those 3 letters are drawn in a triangle, like the Mazda rotary engine. There was a TV advertisement back in probably the early 70s, where it said other engines have pistons that go up and down, but the Mazda engine goes, just spins. So I had that in mind in drawing that little motif with the triangle with the blue thread, like the Zitziot thread, where that's what we're supposed to be doing. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your Elohim. Samik ayin pei, samik ayin hey. Bear fruit, inspect the fruit, eat the fruit, fertilize the tree, the boom, boom, Musamakai and pay is what we're doing when we're doing his stuff. Just so you know the thinking behind that graphic. But then there's a Tav Resh here, Sitar, Samak Tav Resh. Well, Samak Tav Resh, the organized structure of Tav Resh, you look that up and it means explore, to seek, to search. And then to find. The word matzah, memzadi hey, or memzadi aleph, means to find what you're looking for, to find how something is done. Right after Pesach, the very next day, a couple hours later, is the festival Chag HaMatzot. Matzot is the finding out how something is done. So we're given this model of Passover, an evening, not even the whole day. The Passover regard is the evening. You eat it at night, and then the next day is first day of unleavened bread. Well, then you have to look at the calendar and say, when does the day start? That's a different matter. But what I'm saying is that right behind the meal of Pesach is, well, if Passover represents Yahuwah saying to us, I'm your Elohim and you're my people. Okay, that's Passover. We're now his. We've crossed over. Pesach jumped over. We're now in the Het, in his kingdom. Now what do? Find out how it's done. Huh? What? That's right. There's a way to do things. Protocols of the kingdom. Torah. So the barbecue grill, altar of sacrifice, it says in the building of the Mishkan, was set right inside the gate. It wasn't necessarily set back 20 feet. It was right inside the gate. Well, how does that even work? You can't have a barbecue grill right next to a fabric fence. It'll catch fire or it'll get in your way. It's like, don't you need some elbow room to sacrifice these animals? So again, the imaginary, the symbolic, thematic logogram, that's what we're dealing with in this study. To seek for the paradigmic structure, for the indexed vertical horizontals of how things are done in this kingdom. That's like the word satar. And then if you're looking up in the dictionary, Klein's dictionary, you'll find Samak Tav Mem, alphabetic index, is right before Samak Tav Resh. Mem is a few letters before, but there's not other words necessarily. The point is, Daniel 12:4, he was told to hide the words, seal the book. Hide the words is Samak Tav Mem. Hide the words. He was told to make that word in the dictionary, make them essentially mute, general, of anonymous opinion. It's like, we don't know what they mean. Draw some shape that nobody knows what it means, but it does mean something. But only you, Daniel, know. And that's where Daniel 12, I believe, was a map, a treasure map, Daniel 12, holding the meaning of the letters in alphabetic order. We've talked about that before. But the idea that he hid something by making it indistinct, of unknown meaning or origin or purpose. That wasn't the devil doing it. That was Yahuwah telling Daniel to obscure something, obfuscate, for a reason and for a certain period of time. It's a very similar word with this. So this refuge has a purpose. It's most high. And then here's this word, Bet Zadi Lamed, Betzel. The fellow who, you might say, took Yahuwah's design and built, fabricated, manufactured the Mishkan was a guy named Betzalel. Zalel, Zadi Lamed Lamed, means shadowy, shaded, grow dark, cause to sink or become clear, like doing distilling, set to music or quiver, shade. Hey, that's the word umber, sombrero, ombre. That's why we were mentioning that word. Betzel means to put something in an oven. Well, that's to make it shaded, protected, covered. Shelter protection is the word Betzel. Shaddai. Well, that's El Shaddai. So here we have two words which you might say are synonym nicknames, you might say, of Yahuwah is Elyon and Shaddai. Shaddai, El Shaddai, means the Almighty, but Shad is also a devastation. Shaddai, Shin Dalet Hay, is a field that's been harvested, plowed, just torn up, like you might see pictures of Europe in World War I in particular, fields that just blown the heck out of them. That's a picture of Shaddai. Shaddai is the one who, you might say, does that. And then the last word of the sentence is Yod Tav Lamed Vav Nun Nun. Well, the last nun is a suffix letter meaning doing that. Yod, or Yod Tav, is he who will. So Lamed Vav Nun is the active verb, lon. In the dictionary, you'll see it means lodge or pass the night. It also means withheld. Just stay over one more night. Well, that's just stay over one more time. That's a synonym with the word atzeret, like the word Shemini Atzeret. So you've got the 7 days of Sukkot, and then you've got Shemini Atzeret. Shemini means 8. It also means oil. Shemini would be my oil, but Shemin also means to appraise, assess, and evaluate. Stay a little longer and appreciate. After the 7 days of the command of Sukkot, Shemini Atzeret. It also means abode or remained. Lone. So go back. He who sits or returns to be in the refuge or the secret place, or he who has searched and found the psalmic index order, the way things are built of the Most High, is in the shelter or protection, the shade, the sombrero, the betzel of the Almighty, passing the night. Passing the night, well, you're already, if you're in the dark, betzel, passing the night is like another type of dark. So the idea of being an hombre, umbrella, sombrero, graduate, it's shading. So in Spanish, the hombre is the one who's supposed to be the shelter, the protection of the woman. That's why the word hombre is man. He gives shade, shelter. And so the secret place, the refuge that we search to find the psalmic order of the Most High, is where we find the shelter from the devastation, so we can pass the night of darkness that comes upon the world. So whether or not there's going to be a coming, let's call it a cataclysmic event of terrible things, whether it's economic like the Great Depression, whether it's a war like World Wars I and II, Civil War, whether it's a volcanic, whether it's fire, flood, whatever it might be, any kind of pestilence, Book of Revelation scenario of tribulation, this is our destination, Satar Elyon. And we got to sit there, dwell there, hang out there, return to there. What is it? I'm suggesting that it's this very study that we're conducting. And we're going to look at Jeremiah 23, where he talks about, there's this one phrase that he mentions twice, which is quite mysterious. He talks about Amad Basodi, Jeremiah 23:18. And it's translated, if they've been exposed to my mystery. Exposed to my mystery. Well, to be exposed, you might say the word resh aleph hey means to see, but it's also to have something revealed to you, to be perceptible, made perceptible to you, or he exposed himself, or he made known, to understand. So to get it, oh, I see that. That's resh aleph hey, but this is Amad, ayin mem dalet. Ayin mem dalet is something that is, that exists, that's stationed and positioned, very similar to Zadi Bet, and Kuf Vav Mem. And there's a few other synonyms. If we can, we'll probably have to go on next week to continue with this talk, just so you know as well. Sod, Samik Vav Dalet. It's actually the opposite of Elyon. Elyon is most high. Samik Vav Dalet is hidden, secret foundation, underground, as it were. Yasod, Yod Samik Dalet, means foundation, basis, premise. Interesting thing in Hebrew, Resh Aleph Shin, Rosh means head, but it's also foundation. It's the topmost, but it's also the beginning and that which establishes and founds. The Samik Dalet Mem is where you get the word Sodom, but Samik Dalet also stocks for torture. It also has to do with an anvil or something base, like a tree trunk, something heavy and base notes, which form the foundation upon which everything else is built. What is Elyon, the Most High, built upon? If we think of the Most High as just being, whoa, it's way up there in the sky, it's ethereal. But remember, the word kavod was heavy, honor, esteem, glory. We think of heavy as something sinking down. Pictures in the words, but what would be a mod sodi, basodi, bet in the condition of the value of Samik Dalet? There's that engineered structure again, Samik. And Dalet as a door, a choice. If we just look at the definition, Sodom, why is Sodom Samik Dalet Mem? Well, Dalet Mem is the word for blood or likeness, hemorrhaging. It's also the word for silent. You could sit here and contemplate all these variations. You could put other prefixes and other suffixes around the root couple letters. Ayin Mem Dalet, Amad. Ayin Mem means people. Mem Dalet is where we get the word mode or made. Something tailor-made, something fit, suitable fit, something suitably placed on the foundation. How is that translated if they were exposed to my mystery? Yahweh has a mystery, Yahweh has a secret, a sod. Brad Scott used to say that sod meant family secrets, and so you get the word PRDS, Pashat, Remez, Dras, and sod. 4 letters as an acronym of how to study. The Pashat is the surface narrative, Remez is allegorical or hints, Drosh is deep study, again, logical, analytical, but sod means family secrets. It's like, well, where are you supposed to get that if it's not attainable just as meaning allegories that you can preach sermons about or deep study? You have to have certain insights. Insights like what? Like Ahmad Basodi. Who is Yahuwah and what's he about? How does he do things? Family secrets. And if we have that, I'm suggesting that Proverbs 91 is the upshot. Another thing about Betzel, Zadi Lamed Mem also means darkness, but Zadi Lamed Mem is the word used in Genesis where Elohim said, let us make man in our image and our likeness. The word image is Zadi Lamed Mem. The word likeness is Dalet Mem, dam, like dummy, like blood. But image also means idol, semblance, form. Does that mean he has a body? Does that mean Elohim has a head, torso, 2 arms, 2 legs? Not necessarily. But that word Zadi Lamed Mem also means darkness. Let's make man in our darkness. It also means photograph. But the word darkness means shade. Let's make man in our shade. Is that a way to Let's make man fit to our sombrero. What? Let's make man so that he can wear a hat just like us. Gosh. This is how you have to think about Hebrew, all these crazy thoughts to figure out what in the world he's talking about. Now, last week in the handout, we were on page 6 and 7. So I was just fitting, again, alphabetic order. If Aleph, Elohim designed and built his idea, the universe. So if Bet is the beginning of Bereshit, the Aleph isn't there. So it's the inferred Aleph. So here's the universe. And who put it there? The Aleph, the silent one who doesn't reveal himself other than the fact that this exists. So the whole idea of Jim Holt's book, Why Does the World Exist? And it's like, well, I don't know. What was the intent or the purpose that the Aleph, the invisible, silent, responsible party, maybe they were Martians, maybe they were beings from some other galaxy, but whoever, whatever, built this place, that's referred to as the Aleph. So Bet is, hey, we find ourselves in this universe, in this body, having a conscious event. I'm just going to go through quickly what I was talking about last week. So we grow, we sprout, we experience things. Hey, look at that. Hey, let's go visit over there. Let's eat this food. Gee, I like that. I don't like that. That's Gimel. That's just verb action. That's growing and developing and sprouting. In Dalet, we have 5 senses, but we're made aware of this door. We're made aware of something that we don't see. We have this sense. Remember, it said he put eternity in men's hearts. Everybody thinks there's an eternity? Perhaps, but then, hey, to give instruction, to make enlightenment, we bump into sacred books. The Zohar, Stan Tenen looked at that. It's a Kabbalistic text. Other people, there's the Quran. Literally, the word Quran means that thing that you're supposed to read. Qur'an, Kufresh Aleph means to read. Kufresh Nun or Kufresh Aleph Nun means this is the thing which is read. See, it's got the Nun suffix, just showing you the way the language is constructed. We could say, well, the Sefer is the thing you're supposed to read. Samik Pei Resh. Anyway, so technically, Quran and Sefer are, you might say, an equal or synonyms of something that you read. And other religions have other books. You could read the Constitution. That's just something you're supposed to read. We're made aware. That's hey. Vav, connect. Vav is a connection. It's the masculine suffix. The masculine is the connecting device. Connect with what? Your favorite ideology, or it's like, why am I on the face of the earth? I don't know. Well, if you can stay in limbo and you can stay in non-connected, but your choice is to connect or not with something. Go to church, go to some country club, connect with something, go, engage with sports. You have the right to choose whatever you want. And then Zion, okay, then you're supposed to die. Die, cut off. That's one way to read it. Put to the weapon. The man put to the weapon, cut off, like the 7-day package, cut off. That's a week. 7 Moedim. That's the end of it. Oh, except there's a bunch of other festivals. The Feast of Trees, the Feast of... Somebody was telling me the other day about all these extra feasts that the Essenes had record of. Wait a minute. If there's a package of 7 Moedim, 8 if you count the day of Shabbat in Leviticus 23, if we regard that as a package deal, those 7, 8, one more, well, 8, the 8th letter het is a fence. You could say that's a fence of a compound holding the first 7 together, or it's now an eternity in our hearts set before us after death. Number 8, even take the number 8 and turn it on its side, and it looks like the infinity symbol used in mathematics. Yeah, but if you start adding a bunch of other festivals, it blurs, it hombres the significant package of the Leviticus 23 regard. So I'm not saying that the extra festivals are evil, but you could throw in 4th of July and Memorial Day and Thanksgiving and New Year's, and only it's not the New Year. The New Year happens in the spring, but we could call January 1st. It's like, wait a minute. So as soon as you start crowding or cluttering or adding or taking away, you've changed the consciousness. So one reason for not regarding the Essene other festivals that they found in records, scrolls in Qumran, is because it blurs the image. It's ombre. I don't know what to do with that. I do know what I can do with Leviticus 23. I can look at it and do what he said. But then when everybody starts adding a dozen other festivals or whatever, it's like, I don't know what makes sense to make of those things. So you keep it to the full basket. That's Tet, right inside the Chet. So as we wrote here, this is page 6 from July 30th. The mysterious beyond death, there's a full basket, which is to say, well, everything is resolved with justice. That's what Yahweh said. It's all going to be resolved. Okay, that I can have that sense of assurance that Tet, this full basket, this round rock that's rolled in front of the tomb, there's all these pictorial graphic images, thematic logograms associated with the letters. Yod, that's this hand that grabs, that grips. It's like the lady in King Kong's hand is the picture on the chart. That same idea that those who belong to Yahweh, those who he claims as his own, are his forever. So when he said, Israel is his nachal, when Yahuwah said Israel is his heritage forever, that's a consciousness that when somebody else says, oh no, that's Israel was divorced and they're all going to burn in hell because they couldn't keep the covenant. They couldn't keep the laws that he imposed on them, which no man can keep because they're impossible. So they're all going to burn in hell. And there's a new people who don't have to do any of his laws. They're under the blood. They're clothed in the blood of the Savior, Jesus. How can that be? That's contradicting what Yahweh said. Yahweh said, Israel is his heritage. Oh, well, so the new group is spiritual Israel. So the old group gets in trouble because they can't do what he said, and the new group gets a total pass to not have to do anything he said. Something doesn't fit. Something feels illogical. If Yahweh says, Israel is in my hand like no other group, no other people group, no other nation. And part of the terms of them being in my hand is that if they listen to my voice and do what I say, they get all the blessings of being in my hand. And if they don't listen to my voice and don't do what I say, that I'm going to set them free, cut them loose for their enemies to ravage them until they come back to my hand. That was the terms of the covenant, which is in force perpetually, still in force today. Well, that's not what we're told. Well, if we're not told what he said, there's a disconnect. There's something wrong. It's illogical. Are we in his hand or not? What did he say? And so you have Kaf representing the Torah. Now here I have written on this page, John 11:26, whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Whoever lives and believes in me. Does that mean whoever walks the face of the earth alive? There's the psalm that's the last line of the Aleph-Bet song. Chaim et al-ulam. There's a psalm that says, Yahweh commands the blessing, live forever. So if Yahweh doesn't command you to live, you're not alive. You may walk the earth with a type of life, but you're not alive unless Yahweh is your Elohim. How do you prove whether or not Yahweh is your Elohim? We're told it's all through the Gospel of John and all through the Torah and the Psalms. Do what he said. If you don't do what he said, he's not your Elohim. You're not under his command. You're not Zion, therefore you're not alive. What does it mean to believe in him, and believe in Yeshua? The word believe, according to Genesis 15 with Abraham, means to be trustworthy and faithful as a skilled, trained artisan. proven to be responsible, that you can be entrusted with doing the task you were told to do. The task we are told to do is to love him, and to prove we love him, we're supposed to do what he says. That is the proof of loving him. So it's not like, if you love me, keep my commandment is to love me. No, it's, if you love me, keep my commandments, and his commandments is to do what he said. I think that noise meant that we're just about at the end here. Just give me a couple seconds here. We're at Lamed. What did he say? Choose life, be trustworthy. Look at Proverbs 2, 5 through 20. I'm not going to go through that. Some of you can look up. We need to take his matters to heart so that we live. In which case, then, everything he said, everything Yeshua said about those who live, become the reality. 1 John 5:18, Psalms 34:15. In which case, that throws us to noon. We're unified, we're echad with him. And then the stomach, now we bear his fruit. We manifest the oneness with him because it's one with him. Yeshua in the Garden of Gethsemane said, I and my Father are one, and that he prayed that we would be one with him. What does that mean? That means indistinguishable. You can't determine one from the other. So then how can we have two covenants? How can we have two people groups? How can we have two sets of rules which offset and are dissonant with each other? Something's wrong. And for us to notice there's something wrong means that we're paying attention, tav resh, exploring, seeking, finding something and saying, hey, something's very wrong. So if you don't have his consciousness, you'll never notice what's wrong. One thing I've noticed, then we'll take a break. One thing I've noticed, I spent 50 years in the church, since I was a little kid until 50 years old or so, and sing Christian songs, read King James, NIV, whatever translation, heard thousands of sermons, read many books, hundreds of books. And it all sounds really great. And all of a sudden you go someplace, some Torah study, some messianic group, and you hear something about the Torah, and it literally felt like, remember in the old days when we had records on a turntable and somebody bumps it and the needle goes scratching across the record? That's what the Torah sounded like. Keep this, sit down on the Sabbath day, don't eat bacon. Are you crazy? Get to the law. So I was going to both church and Torah study for a while and listening to Christian radio and started studying the Torah. And then when I found the ancient Hebrew, I stopped the Christian aspect and started pouring myself into the Paleo-Hebrew. Stopped even reading the New Testament for quite some time, a few years. And then stopped listening to Christian radio. And then when I happen to be driving and put on the radio and the Christian music comes on, it's like, oh, it's so beautiful. It's so sweet. It's like the siren song. Remember the story, the Odyssey? Odysseus, the Greek champion from the Trojan War, and he ended up getting kind of detoured at sea for many years, 10 years or something, and he had these various adventures, and one of which these mermaids or sirens would sing this beautiful song, but it was near this rugged coast, and many ships would gotta hear that music. What are they singing? And they got closer and closer, and then the waves would smash them against the rocks, and there's many shipwrecks. Turns out that what people thought were maybe mermaids or sirens was actually the wind blowing through the rocks, and it would be this beautiful, alluring, drawing, seducing, pulling you in because it was so beautiful, so nice and beautiful, enchanting. Kind of like the voice of the serpent in the garden. We're going to get right back to Genesis chapter 3 and what's going on compared to Jeremiah 23 right after the break. If you want to take the break, Kurt.